Hi, I'm Addison,
I'm Jenna.
and we're talking about the excretory system.
Yay. Okay.
So, in this system, you have kidneys, as you can see here, and their job is to regulate water volume, concentration, and pH levels. It influences red blood cell production and blood pressure, and as you can tell, it's like a bean-shaped organ. You're born with two, but you could live with one as long as it is high functioning. If it's not high functioning, then you can't live with one because it's not going to be able to do its job efficiently. Its ultimate job is to filter blood and dispose of waste in a liquid form, urine.
All right.
Here's our diagram.
The main purpose of the renal cortex is to protect the inner structures of the kidneys. The renal cortex is also known as the location where filtration happens.
So it's the outside.
So the filtration location.
Yes. The next thing is the medulla, which you can see here is like the outer and inner portions. It's like surrounds the renal pyramids, and again, like this is location where like filtration goes deeper than just the cortex. It happens in this location. It also like helps keep the pyramids in place.
The renal pyramids consist mainly of tubules, and its main function is to transport urine from the cortical part of the kidney where the urine is actually produced, and then transport it more towards the ureter, and then the ureter takes it to the bladder.
Yeah, and going with that is the renal pelvis. So as you can see, like urine's stored and transported in these pyramids, which in this diagram are these green things. Then as it goes, which this ends up being, this is the ureter, but it has to go through the renal pelvis, which is right here. So in that's the location it takes the urine, which is stored in these pyramids, and transports them.
The renal artery is like one of the most important structures in the kidney. The renal artery is like the in for the blood. Like if you're a blood cell, like you want to be here because like that's
how you get in.
The blood cells that have been oxygenated and pumped out by the heart go into the renal artery, and so you need this homing to get into the kidney. Like there's no question about it. Like if you're not going through there, like it's out of the question. And the renal artery is what carries blood into like the kidneys, and that's where it like disperses, and that is what allows the blood to be filtered and waste and toxins to be removed.
Yeah, so as you can see in this diagram, it comes in through this area right here, and it just goes everywhere. And then from here, it's like it goes in the nephrons, which we'll talk about in like the next clip. But you can see it's like surrounds like the renal pyramids, and it's just like it goes everywhere. Through this process, yeah, it goes to the nephron where like filtration, absorption, and then secretion happens when it goes out the renal vein. So you can see like disperses, and then it's gonna go back to the same entrance area, but like right here. So this is a renal vein where it carries blood away from the kidney once it's filtered and all of that. Once the unnecessary elements are taken out of the blood, which then are like disposed of as waste. But they're removed from the blood, and the renal vein carries the filtered blood out of the kidney.
Next is the ureter. So the main purpose of this is for the transportation of the urine that has been formed. So once the blood goes to the artery and stuff, and it's like everything is taken out that's supposed to be taken out, then it forms urine eventually. So like all the toxins, waste that like your body doesn't need, like all of that, like that it just doesn't need, it's formed into urine, and the ureter takes it is like just like basically like a tube that like goes from the kidney to the bladder where it waits to be excreted.
And then in the next clip, we will show you more specifics of the nephron. So before we show the nephron, we wanted to kind of explain it, and then we can go into more detail over like the different parts of it. The nephron, you actually cannot see it on this diagram, or else I would show it to you, but there are lots of these in the human body. The kidney is made up of nephrons in it. It's there's thousands of these, and this is where like the blood is like actually filtered. So once it disperses, it is filtered here. They're responsible for the elimination of waste from the body, regulating and maintaining a normal blood pH, as we said earlier, formation of urine, controlling the amount of electrolytes and metabolites, regulating blood volume as well as blood pressure. So this is a very important piece of your kidney, even though it's like very, very small and you can't really see it, or you cannot see it, unless you have a microscope that's really powerful. But the nephrons are regulated by hormones in order to maintain the homeostasis, by regulating the amount of things that should be kept in the blood and those that need to be excreted in order to supply the body with what it needs to get rid of what it does not need. So those, we'll go into more detail, but the things that are waste and like extra water, or if you drink a lot of alcohol, the water that comes from that too, like all of that is going to be secreted. So to label the important structures and function of the kidney, well, we already talked about the functions, but for the structures, we drew a diagram and we pointed to it in the previous clips. Here is the renal cortex, as we showed, is the outside, which would be like right here. Whoa, right here, all the way around. The medulla, which is this inner part, which is also around here. You can, my colors are kind of bad because I only have 3 markers, but here it is. The renal pyramids are these orange colored endings. So they kind of look like orange slices. They're all around. So your urine can be collected and then disposed of later. Your renal artery is, in my diagram, this one, where it is bringing the blood in from the heart. And this is the renal vein. So you can see the green's like going everywhere, and the black is also going everywhere throughout the whole kidney, which is taking blood out. This is the renal pelvis right here, which is where the urine goes when it goes from the renal pyramids and then out of the ureter. It goes right here through this part of the kidney. And then as you see this tube, long orange tube, bottom is your ureter, and it brings urine to your bladder, which would be down here. So just one final thing is just making sure we covered everything. The renal cortex is the outside, the medulla is around the renal pyramid throughout the whole kidney. The renal pyramids are these orange things right here shown and labeled. The artery brings blood in to be filtered and disperses around the whole kidney, and then the renal vein brings it out right here. And the renal pelvis is the area where it goes from the pyramids into the ureter, which brings it all the way.
So this liquid from the blood is now filtrate made up of water, urea, ions, molecules like sodium, glucose, and amino acids. It then goes to the proximal tubular. The Bowman's capsule is what surrounds the glomerulus, so this stuff that is on top. So the Bowman capsule is actually like the glomerulus is encapsulated by the Bowman's capsule, and obviously since Play-Doh is not transparent, we were not able to make that look like that, but that part is actually inside of it. Then we go to the proximal tubular. A quick reasoning of why some of these are thicker than others is because the thinner part, water is permeable, so that means that like water is like good to like go through, and this thicker part is not like that. In the proximal tubular and through the loop of hinal and distal tubular, water is reabsorbed, glucose and amino acids, sodium, potassium, and water. So like basically, whenever water is carried through a blood cell, there's water in it, and the kidney is responsible for removing that water that is needed for the body, because without water, your body's made up of like 75% of water or something. So like if that water is not removed, like you dead.
Which makes your urine really concentrated, because when the water is taken out, all that's left is those minerals such as sodium, and we'll go into more detail about that later.
So this loop right here, which goes through the renal cortex and renal medulla, is where the most reabsorption happens, and we know this because, as you can see, like this part is thick and this part is thin, which means that water is allowed to go through it, so a lot of it is just like reabsorbed. This extracts most of the water we need from the filtrate as it travels down through the medulla, so as it travels down, more and more is being collected, pumps out the salts that we want to keep on the way back to the cortex. This process makes the medulla hypertonic, very salty, more than the filtrate, creating a concentration gradient where the medulla draws out even more water, making the urine very concentrated.
So basically here, water is just taken out and out and out until it is really concentrated, like around here.
So as you go through here, you're going to come back up here to the distal tubular. The distal tubular regulates levels of potassium, sodium, and calcium. So this is basically like, this is all the minerals that like your body needs. So like without potassium, sodium, and calcium, like your body could not function, and it could not maintain homeostasis without it. So this pumps and hormones look at the reabsorption process, also transport excess water, urine, and other metabolic waste into collecting ducts back to the center of the kidney and medulla. It is also important to note that whenever it talks about, okay, so the kidney is ran by hormones. So like, hormones send an action potential, if you will, to the kidney, telling it what it needs to do, like what your body needs. Like say you're dehydrated, your body's like, absorb more water. and like if you need calcium, potassium, sodium, it's gonna tell you to like reabsorb more of that. And then it comes down here into the collecting duct. Once this is done, it's like urine now. And so it's coming down here and stuff, and this is the collecting duct. And so basically it's gonna come down here and it's gonna transport to the renal pelvis,
which then goes to the ureter, to your bladder, and comes out.
So this is a nephron. Jenna already covered this earlier, but we're just gonna reiterate some of the important parts of it. In this picture, I'm just using this image, and it is from the YouTuber Armando, but just look at the image. So first, the glomerulus is kind of when everything is just taken from the blood and is taken out, and now we have to reabsorb it and make sure it's filtered correctly. So this is a nephron, as we said earlier. Here is the approximated tubule, where you can see in these boxes where certain stuff is taken out. But it is made up of cells that produce ATP, which powers, pumps, and pulls sodium from the filtrate. Filtrate is sent from the glomerulus onto this process. But inside this, there's a microvilli, which help reabsorb ions from filtrate and into the blood. So it goes from the filtrate, which is inside the tube, into the blood. And some of the things that are reabsorbed in this process is sodium, chloride, potassium, amino acids, glucose, urea, and bicarbonate, and water. These are all reabsorbed through here. And then as it travels down, this is the descending loop of Henle, and this is the ascending. So this is in the renal cortex and the renal medulla. We talked about these earlier, but they're like the layers of the kidney. So this loop of Henle goes through both parts. It drives the reabsorption of water. Water is pumped out in the descending, and salt are pumped out in the ascending limb. So these are the limbs, and the descending water is pumped out, and the ascending salt is pumped out, as well as chloride and potassium, which are shown right here and right here. Then in the distal tubule, which is right here, potassium enters the tubule with the nephron in exchange for sodium. So right here you can see where this exchange is occurring. And chlorine, sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium, and bicarbonate are all reabsorbed right here through the process before it goes to the collecting duct. So those are the three different parts of the nephron, and then as it goes to the collecting duct, which will eventually go to through your renal pyramid. For the disease part of this project, we chose something I'm gonna pronounce wrong, but I think it's glomerulonephritis. It's a disease that causes inflammation of the glomeruli, which is the structure in the kidney that we talked about earlier. These structures are responsible for filtering your blood and removing excess fluid from your blood. So if these are damaged, then your kidneys can no longer do its job and cannot filter the blood and remove waste, therefore leading to kidney failure and most likely death. Because if your kidneys are not able to filter your blood, then you're not able to get that filtration and reabsorption, which are the two most important steps of this whole process. So you're not being able to get the potassium and calcium and water that you need to out of your blood and then reabsorb. Like, all this whole process is going to go wrong, therefore you're not getting what you need to actually live, and your kidneys can build up this, therefore you can get kidney failure. But every disease affects the kidneys differently but has similar results. Because the kidney functions focus specifically on the filtering and excreting waste from the blood, if something is disrupted in the kidneys, it could disrupt the whole process and cause kidney failure. Different diseases in your kidneys do different things, but ultimately, a majority of the kidney diseases do end up leading to kidney failure and death, because if one part of the entire process of filtration or reabsorption or secretion is messed up, then ultimately it will lead to kidney failure, because the buildup of different amino acids or sodium or water is just not absorbed correctly. Therefore, it's necessary for life, and if it's not being absorbed and filtered correctly, then you will have kidney failure and it will most likely lead to death.
Okay, so that was our project on the kidneys, and we also need to make a quick PSA at the beginning of the video. Whenever I'm going through the Play-Doh model, I say tubular. I don't know why. Like, that's totally tubular, dude, or something like that. I don't know why I said that, but we are both fully aware that it is tubule.
Tubule,
not
tubular.
Not tubular. So, as fun as tubular dude is, that's not right. Alright. Thank you so much for watching.
Like and subscribe.
I hope your experience was really entertaining, and go you for watching the whole thing.
have fun grading the rest of these. You're the best. Peace out.